Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday, December 18th's Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll read the agenda. 7 p.m. citizens input. 7:05 appointment interim town finance director / accountant. 7:10 appointment of interim treasurer collector. 7:15 p.m. CBS Sporting Club request extension of closing hours for food services. 7:30 selectmen's update. 7:35 town manager update. 7:40 assistant town manager update. And then we have a few action items. Dave, you want to lead us on that pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. 7 o'clock, anybody here for citizens input? Seeing none, go to the 7:05 item, appointment of interim town finance director accountant.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board is aware that we currently have 2 vacancies in the town's finance department. One is in the position of finance director town accountant, as Mrs. Collins is on an approved leave of absence, and in the revenue officer position, or what is commonly referred to as the treasurer collector role, that was recently vacated by the retirement of Lisa Sinkus. Both positions are being asked to be filled by the board on an interim or temporary basis due to the uncertain time frame of Mr. Collins' return, and the revenue officer position has already been advertised and the recruitment period is now closed. With respect to the specific recommendations that I'm making to the board tonight for the 2 interim roles, I'll take them one at a time. First is regarding the interim finance director town accountant role. I am recommending that Christine Duperst, the assistant town accountant, serve in this role. Randy had always designated Christine for this role during any of his short-term absences, and she was the most knowledgeable member of the staff other than him with respect to the accounting and budgeting systems. As you can see from her resume, that she has served in the role of assistant town accountant since 2012 for the town. She has been doing a great job of keeping the finance department operating during the short-handed period. In addition to that, I've notified the board members, too, that I have appointed, or actually hired, not appointed, but hired, the interim town council, town accountant, finance director services of Chris LaViolette, who is was contracted to provide those support services to Christine, who will assist her in her roles, all aspects of her role of the interim finance director town accountant. As you can see from his resume, he has 31 years of municipal experience to rely on. A combination of these 2 individuals in this department will provide the town with a very good interim finance leadership team. I'll hold my comments with respect to the second one, which is the second item on the agenda. So I do recommend the appointment of Christine to serve in this role, and I think it's also important to point out that it's important that we do have 2 highly qualified staff members that can serve in this role on an interim basis, who are willing to step forward into these roles, help the town through a short-handed period. I recommend that both candidates be appointed without hesitation. So,
Thanks for Amanda and Mike getting us any of the documentation that we needed. Anybody on the board have anything to discuss on this appointment?
Go ahead. Nope, go ahead.
You first.
Mine's like a 3-parter, so why don't you go?
Is the interim appointment kind of open-ended, or is it recommended that we'll do a 30-day interim and then revisit it?
we'll continue to revisit it as the situation warrants. We'll continue to evaluate the situation on the absence as is warranted, and I'll keep the board apprised of that situation as it continues to evolve. I don't have any final answers, and if I do, I certainly will share them.
Okay. Thank you.
So that was one of my pieces is, since it is kind of open-ended, I think that we should maybe put a date on it just to keep us honest with reviewing it, whether it's 30 days and it's January 22nd would probably be the next time that we look at these. And then just as other department heads or other positions have gone vacant, do we have to appoint someone to these? We're in a unique situation right now where we have 2 assistant town managers and you, and we've got Chris coming on. Do we have to make this appointment?
Yeah, so this is it's a good question. So in due respect that we do, because And actually, this is a board appointment, which is typically not the case, because I appoint most of the people, department heads, and even on an interim basis. So this normally wouldn't come to the board, but because this position the position of finance director reports is appointed by the board, it is your appointment. Also, I've asked the opinion of town council to who is the appropriate person to do this action, and he said he did indicate it was the Board of Selectmen. He did also indicate that even on an interim basis, that it's interesting because without the finance director is also the ex officio treasurer collector. So without him being here as well, he was sort of filling in with that role as even while he was serving in that role. So now that he is not present, I'm asking you to actually appoint 2 people to fill in that case. So given the fact that we have a limited time frame, hopefully for the treasurer collector position, I will say that it is appointed by the finance director, so it sort of leaves an open-ended question there as to how we can address that. It's important to have 2 people to serve in that role. One actually is important for signing checks and handling bond and debt service issues. The other one is to handle all the accounting issues and to sign warrants, et cetera. Those are things that are required by the charter. Okay.
And both of these people in their interim roles would be bonded and
Yes.
have okay. And how about the cost to the town? So now we've got Chris coming in, obviously there's a cost there. Is there any additional cost to appointing these folks as well?
There will be. They typically what happens is they would get paid the first step of the person's role position as the department head. It's a little bit different with Randy's role because of course he's a contract employee. So we'll look at that and come up with what is considered a reasonable compensation level for that. But typically we would do that for that consideration. Pay them the first step of the compensation.
Okay.
That first step is only during the interim basis?
Correct. That's correct.
And we're not backfilling either one of them, so they're
Right.
currently serving in both their assistant
regular roles.
and acting roles. So,
Correct.
for example, Christine's the assistant town accountant and also serving as the interim town accountant. So we're not backfilling her other position. So the total, the net would be the step 1 plus the person coming in to support the overall department.
Right. So we are contracting for that service. That is an additional cost to us. No question.
Any other questions?
Just a couple questions. So you have already contracted, Chris, is it Lavelle?
Laviolette, right.
Thank you for sending the resumes and the job description. Where Chris, in his past employment, he's got over 30 years' experience. He's very qualified. He's filled this role in other towns and then some.
Yep.
My concern is, and when you look at the resumes of the 2 individuals, and you look at the job description, and the fact that we're moving one position up to the other, the finance director, who is on top of the treasurer collector, who is also an intern.
Right.
I'm very concerned that that top position, which is probably one of the most important positions in this town, is being filled by somebody that is just not qualified to do it. If you look at the job description, the masters, all the criteria that's set in the job description, it's just not filled by Christine moving up there. Has there been thought for Chris to move up there? You've said you've already hired him.
Yeah, so Chris is in a contractual role. I mean, he's providing a service to us. So Chris, at some point, he could serve in that role. The problem is right now is that he doesn't understand any of our systems and any of the way we operate, and this town operates. He has served in the role of a finance director, and that's the reason why I wanted to put him in a support role, because quite honestly, Christine is the only one who really knows how we operate. Same thing with Paula. Paula understands our systems as well, and so they can step into those roles. And quite honestly, we haven't really missed too many beats because of the fact those people have stepped into that role. And, given any circumstances, I think they would not prefer to be in this kind of situation, but they've come willingly forward to say, look, I'll help you if you want me to, and to step into those roles temporarily. But I don't think that Christine would have done that without, or even Paula in this case, without some support from the top, which was to hire Chris and help him bring him in. So Chris would not be the right guy for right now to make any decisions because he doesn't know how we operate. And he's readily admitted that to me, that this is the right role for him right now.
So with that being said, too, if we're going to relook at this in 30 days, we could relook at
We could.
that possibility. And I do agree getting him up to speed
Acclimated.
with how the town does business in the next 30 days. I mean, that
We can always reconsider that, but, you know, and I will tell you, though, that the way it's working right now is actually working quite well. So and he's still getting his feet wet and understanding, you know, where everything is, and there's a lot to learn, but he's picking up stuff every day, so I'm really pleased with his progress. So, and he's smart, he's a very qualified guy, so it's good to have him aboard. I just hope that I can keep him, too, because, you know, he's an interim role, so which means that, you know, that he could get a job offer at any point, too, and that's the other side of that, too, is that if I lose him, I could lose him and have to retrain somebody else. So that's my concern, is to not spend too much time training him, but just enough to keep us going and to provide us the right direction on things that at a high level that need to get done on a regular basis on the accounting level. Clearly, he understands. He's a municipally certified accountant, which is really helpful. It's a really high qualification, so.
So, one more question. So hypothetically, if we have the resources in place and the position is still filled, but on an approved leave, hypothetically, could we leave it as is on just an interim basis? And Chris is coming to fill in. No one's officially named interim, but, you know, the department keeps functioning with the contract help.
Well, see, he's not approving, he's not signing off on any documents, he's not approving any documents, so I still need Christine to do that role and to do the actual work. So that's the thing, she's still doing a lot of the work, the hands-on work. So-
No, I get it. So can that all keep functioning and chugging along without this kind of formal step of naming someone? Because it is so interim, there's a lot unknown as far as the time frame, you know, kind of what's going to happen. I assume there's job protection too right now, so there's really nothing we can even do permanently yet?
Right, and there's no steps I want to even address in that area, so, but I will tell you that as, with due respect to the role, town council advised me that you should appoint somebody on an interim basis to serve in that capacity, to sign documents, et cetera, even the warrants. So in this case, she's the most qualified person I have right now to do that work because she's so familiar with it. And by the way, served in that capacity on numerous occasions, even while the previous finance director, the current finance director, is actually serving in that was serving on vacation or out for a period of time.
Right, okay. So no one, like assistant town manager, couldn't sign that while everything keeps
No, it
kind of
has to be
working?
the finance, because there's a check and balance with the finance department, with the town manager, in terms of us both signing the document.
Okay. So can I have a motion?
Well, under further discussion a little bit, I'm probably going to vote against this, and I spoke to Bill a couple times. There's been a whirlwind of activity around both of these positions over the last couple of months. For me to understand it, there were certain documents I've asked for. I've officially asked for them, and I've been denied those documents. The Attorney General says I am able to get those documents. I'm more comfortable once I look at what's been going on and some conclusions before I jump into this. If what I'm hearing, there's no urgency, it's been going on for quite a while, I'm going to be insistent to review those reports before I make a decision. If I don't get the reports, then probably we'll vote on it if that's the final answer. But from what I understand, they're coming soon. I want to review it before I make a educated decision on this, because again, if there was an urgency that we needed this next week, I would say yes, but we have been working with a treasurer collector on an interim position without being appointed. We have been, we've got a very qualified person that could be doing it, and according to you the other day, he could go either way. He would take this position if it was offered him. Not sure of the details. If this was something that was for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months with a end date on it, I would say yes. But we're putting someone in that position with no end date, and if everything goes well, it goes well. But you can't put someone in that position and not let them utilize their position to do what they need to do. If it goes wrong, she's still in that position. I just don't think she's qualified to do it based on our own job description, based on our own qualifications that we ask for and we seek. And I understand it's an interim position. If it was an emergency, I would say yes. But again, and I said it the other day, I want more time to get the information that I've asked for on this.
What is the timing of, like, when you would have to have somebody to sign any of those
We
documents?
should be doing it now. Should be doing it now. I mean, right now, she's doing it on an interim basis because that's the only person I have in that role. But, I mean, officially, we should have a person in the role.
But
I
by
mean,
proxy, can the assistant person do that today anyway, if someone's on vacation or out of the office?
Right, but again, we don't know. I mean, it's one thing to do it for like a week or two, and that's fine, and that's what it's designed for. But, you know, we could be heading into a longer period than that. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't want to put the town in a position where we're not signing documents officially in an official way, and I think that's really what we're trying to achieve. And, you know, I've been advised by council we should be doing this. This is a recommended action by town council.
An important distinction to make, if I may, is this role's unique for this town. Not every town has a finance director who's a town accountant. So a town accountant is a statutory position that towns need to have. And some towns have separate town accountants, some have, you know, combined finance director, treasurer, collector. It's different across a lot of municipalities. So I think the important role here is the town accountant. You need to statutorily have somebody to do the daily accounting functions and the checks and balances that exist in a town. So I think it is important to have somebody in that official role, and that's why when the finance director would go on vacation, he would name this person as the town accountant to have all the signing powers. But in the absence of not having the finance director here, you know, you don't have somebody officially naming the town accountant. We need you to do it.
And I will just say that, given the circumstances, this person is the most qualified person we can appoint right now. I mean, given the fact that they're the most familiar with our systems, most familiar with everything that we do, and is effectively helping us out doing the role, there's no reason why we can't appoint the person. And like I said, if you're going to review it every 30 days and to see how it's progressing and working, we're happy to do that too. There is no danger for not doing this, is what I'm suggesting to you. There is no danger. There is a concern to me that if you don't do this, that there's a bigger potential issue for the town if we don't do that.
So, Mary Beth, to your point, and we're kind of saying the same thing a little bit, if the primary role or the significant importance is the accountant role on this, if you look at Chris Levelitz, he was a CPA, a CGA, interim town accountant, interim town treasurer, town collector, chief financial officer. It goes on and on. He's got a Bachelor of Science in Economics, Finance, concentration in accounting. He is much more qualified. He doesn't have the institutional knowledge here, but if it's accountant that you're looking for, 30 years of this resume versus an associate's degree with a few years' experience here, and it's not personal, the primary role is accounting, overqualified is one person that we're not considering for this role, and that's my hesitation.
It's not that we didn't consider him, Jim, it's just the fact that he's not the right guy for now. And that's my point. It is that this is, everything we're doing here is temporary. And operationally, in due respect to what you've described, we're the boots on the ground that know how these things operate and how things are getting done. I wouldn't recommend this to you if I didn't feel the person could do the job. I simply wouldn't do that.
Perhaps in 30 days, once he understands our systems, that could be the decision you make.
So
in 30
if we
days.
approve this tonight with the stipulation that we can relook at it in 30 days and
Absolutely.
reassess the situation.
Right.
And we may have more
I do
information in
agree.
30 days.
I mean, I met
yeah.
with him last week, and he does need time to learn the system a little bit.
Right.
And I think the sooner we can get some stabilization, because it is the budget season,
Right,
the better off.
Within that 30-day period, we may have a better understanding of the leaf situation as well. So, I mean, all those things are pluses. To do nothing here is not recommended, is my suggestion to you.
So we could appoint her for a term of 30 days and reevaluate it?
Reevaluate. That's perfectly acceptable to me.
Okay.
Probably the most cautious approach.
Yeah,
And-
most conservative,
Yep.
reasonable step to take.
But in fairness, to hear you've met with them, you
I
know.
met him right after
Okay.
our selectmen's
Okay.
meeting, met with them
Okay,
to
that-
say,
that's
hi,
all.
how you doing, you know?
And I encourage every one of you to meet with him, within the 30-day period, to go in and talk with him and get to know him. As you should get to know Christine, too, because you'll find she's a pretty qualified gal, and she does a great job for us.
So to that point, I mean, under the Strong Town Manager Act, really, this is the only position that this board has to appoint, finance director, right?
That's right.
I would like a chance to meet with both of them. I don't know Christine at all. I don't know him. And to make a decision without even meeting them, to getting the resumes in one day's notice, the job description, I don't think it's fair to the board.
Well, Jim, it's an interim role. It's not the permanent appointment. So I would understand your
Yeah.
position.
If it was interim,
But-
Bill, there's no end date on this. is it?
Understand, but that's why we're doing a 30-day
There
appointment.
is an end date, we're putting a 30-day.
But what happens at the end of the 30 days? So at the end of the 30 days, there's no
That
one
gives you
new
30
here.
days to
That
meet
gives you an
everybody.
opportunity to get more information on the situation.
And with the holidays and everything, for
Right.
you guys to, you
But
know,
what happens at the end of the 30 days if we still
could-
can't hire anyone and we have someone who, again, I don't know Christine, who is not qualified in a role that is a very, very important role?
All right, so at that point, you can decide whether you want her to continue in that role as the interim person, or you can appoint Chris, if he's available. I
So
mean,
we
that's
can
my
appoint
point.
Chris even if he's not an employee?
You could.
I thought we
You
could not.
No, I've hired him in contractual services only, but you can still appoint them for that purpose if you wanted to. You have the ability to
We
do
could
that.
appoint him today if we
You
wanted
could,
to.
you could. I wouldn't recommend that to you, though. I mean, that's, and again, I go back to the fact that you asked me to run the town on a day-to-day basis. I'm trying to give you a recommendation that I think is in the best interest of this community. I'm trying to give you the best operational decision we can make right now. And I'm not trying to steer you wrong here. I'm trying to give you the best recommendation I can give you under the circumstances we have, which are not easy, granted.
And I think we all know that and we appreciate that, but I need to, at the end of the day, say, okay, I reviewed everything that's out there, I have met with people, I feel confident, I appreciate, and I do, value your opinion on it, but I think we're all elected here to sit here and review stuff and do due diligence and not, just kind of take someone's word, because if anything ever does go wrong, our town is in a good spot right now, but let's say something goes wrong, people are quick to go back and say, well, it's the one, position we appoint, and this went on 6 months, and look where we are now, look where we were, and look where we are,
Right, and that's why I think the 30-day review is perfectly reasonable under the circumstances. So if I was not saying that to you, I would understand your frustration, but I'm saying to you, this is a short-term step. Let's take a look at it again in 30 days, and then we can decide, the board can continue to either go in the direction it's going, or you can change it, you can alter it. So that'll be your decision.
and maybe over the next 30 days, you can get comfortable and meet everybody, and, we could set up through our office meetings, however you want, probably individually, would be legally the best way to do it.
So I think I would prefer doing that step before we make the decision. If we could do it at our next meeting and then make a decision that's not handcuffed with 30 days. I would like to meet the person. I would like to meet both candidates, maybe have them here, maybe listen to some staff that's worked with them, that's interviewed with them, make that decision. This has been going on for several months now.
No, that's
No.
not true. No, that's not
So
true.
one of the
But that situation, Jim, was that the finance director had that responsibility, because that's part of his role.
The only-
So we didn't need to fill that position on an interim basis. The only position the only reason I'm asking for that now is because he's not here. And so I wouldn't have asked for it otherwise.
My worry is year-end with a town accountant. You might need someone statutorily to sign off on the things a municipality would need for a year-end situation. Even though we go fiscal year, there are certain reporting things, IRS stuff, and I think you actually need someone on record to sign things, and we're heading into that period. So that's why I think you're going to probably, if we go back and ask town council, they probably would say, for the next 30 days, you should have someone on record as that person. Because there are only like 4 or 5 positions in a municipality that require a contract, and town accountant is one of them. And that's because every town needs to have one.
And this is really the first opportunity I've had to bring this item to your attention, because I would tell you that the last meeting, I was still in the process of just getting to know the person I brought in, trying to understand the situation that we had, because it literally was, I think it was within 72 hours, I was able to secure somebody in, which I was recommended to me by a person I have a lot of respect for. So I wasn't in a position to make a recommendation to you at that point until I really had a good feeling as to how we were going to proceed. This extra time that the board has considered this has allowed me to feel comfortable with the position that I'm in. And so, and that's why I'm recommending the action I'm taking at this point.
Mike, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did. When things all changed, a couple of days into our new budget season, we put our heads together, said, what do we do? We've got an immediate situation that we need to address. We're already down a couple of people. We had an illness and some other things going on in the finance department. And so we look at how do we cover things to make sure that the town gets through budget season, does the things it needs to do. As Mary Beth said, year end, you've got to do your W-2s. You've got to do some reporting. You've got to do your Affordable Care Act stuff. That has to happen in early January. So we got together. We talked about this stuff. We talked about bringing in someone as Bill has done, and the person that he first reached out to was not available. But recommended someone else, someone that he had several recommendations from, and that's who's here now. And the initial discussion was about naming him the interim town accountant, and that was something that was not recommended by our town council because of what Bill just described. Because he's not someone who knows our system, he's not someone who's worked in the accounting. That town accountant role is critical, especially right now in budget season, at calendar year end, and then of course at fiscal year end too. So it was the town council was able to convince us pretty quickly that this was the right recommendation to make and the right thing to do, and that it wasn't something the town manager could do. That has to be done by the Board of Selectmen. So I agree with what the town manager is recommending. I really think it's the most conservative, wise thing for the board to do is make a 30-day appointment. And
So let's see what happens beyond that. I mean, the situation could rectify itself, or we could be in a situation where we have to take additional steps to address it, to shore it up even more. So in the meantime, we're in the middle of a budget season, which the individuals in that office are working hard to work with us to get that prepared and ready for you during the month of January. So all those people are working hard to get to do the right thing here. So I just want to make sure we have the right positions in place to make sure it happens.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
No, I didn't have a question, I just didn't want to.
No, I just was switching back to my
Oh, okay.
screens. Move to appoint Christine Dupress as temporary town finance director / accountant.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion?
Under further discussion for a limit of 30 days.
Yeah, for a term of 30 days.
30 days.
For a term to, should we say, expire on January 22nd, which is our closest, January 22nd, 2019. To be reevaluated
It'll
then.
be your next meeting.
That's the
There is
most reasonable 30 days.
Right, I don't know how the meetings.
I checked ahead of time.
It's the 22nd, okay. Okay, very good. We'll revisit that issue on the 22nd. I'm fine with that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
I just need more, I have to meet someone before I can vote and feel good about it.
All right, 7:10, appointment of interim treasurer collector.
So with respect to the interim treasurer collector role, I would recommend that the board appoint Paula Maloney to serve in this capacity. She has been the long-standing assistant treasurer collector for the town. Paula has been the assistant treasurer collector since 2010, and she, like Christine, has intimate knowledge of all the town's operating systems and methods of operation, has been doing a great job of filling in this role and supporting Randy in recent weeks. In addition to her Foxborough experience, Paula has had the added qualification of being both a certified municipal treasurer and collector. Those are qualifications that are rare amongst assistants and are difficult to obtain unless you've had a lengthy hands-on experience in the municipal treasurer-collector operation. As I said, the town is fortunate to have a person like her because even during the most recent recruitments, it's hard to find candidates with those two certifications. They just simply aren't out there. What typically happens is people will come on board and obtain them like a couple of years after they get into the role. So to have somebody on staff that actually has the certifications is actually significant and a plus for the community.
And if I might add, it takes 3 years to get each of the certifications. You need to take 3 years of classes to be a treasurer, and then an exam, and then 3 years of classes to be a collector. So you could be looking at 6 years, bringing someone on. So temporarily, she's got a good track record for us.
And you had said that job is closed out, so you're in the...
So we're looking at
That time frame.
We're looking at that
We
interview
just
process.
discussed the resumes today.
So end date to have a qualified candidate for that position?
Well, again, it gets complicated by the fact that we don't have a finance director in the role right now. So if that situation rectifies itself in the next 30 days, then that would certainly help that. If it looks like that's going to continue beyond that time, then we may be forced with making a decision beyond that, but and I'll be guided by whatever town council advises on that, which I think probably would come back to this board for making that appointment.
Wouldn't it make sense to put the same time frame on the interim treasurer?
I think it would, in
On
the
the
sense that
22nd.
it's because we don't know the circumstances and how they're going to play out. So again, reviewing them every 30 days is probably in the best interest of just making sure that we're looking at every options available.
And we may have a finalist by that date to recommend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in the absence,
No, go ahead.
in the absence of a permanent finance director, not an interim, that position would have to be hired and/or appointed by the Board of Selectmen?
I believe so. I have to confirm
think
that.
so.
I want to confirm that only because it falls back to the statutory authority of the board. And in the event that there's an absence in that position, it would revert back to the statutory authority. And so I just want to confirm that, but I believe that to be the case. And I think that's part of the reason why you're looking at this tonight.
Okay. And I think
So we're-
adding the 30 days.
But just, I don't think I'm following the answer. So are we sure that we have the authority to appoint for this
You
role?
do. For the interim role, you do. It's the
Okay.
permanent appointment that's
Okay.
the difference. Okay.
Yeah. You probably have both.
Well, how long does it usually take to find a candidate once you close applications?
So
Doesn't it usually only take?
It's down to like 5 that we're going to do phone interviews and then narrow it to probably 3 by mid-January. And through the chair, is it okay? We were thinking of asking Leah to sit on our committee because you're the newest and you
Yeah.
haven't been on a committee with us yet. So
Unless someone else feels strongly about it.
Would be perfect.
we've pretty much used up the chair this year.
We're probably at a point where we could be there within 30 days from now, because we've narrowed it down, but we've got the holidays, which
Yeah.
Right, we're really complicated.
Yeah. Could be the week of the 22nd that we're doing
You
the
don't know what-
finalist
probably
interviews.
be a week after that.
Yeah.
But at least you hire someone without that role filled, too.
Oh,
Without,
Well, that's the question we have. That's the question we have.
so that's the part.
Yeah,
So
that's the
the-
part, yeah.
Now I'm with
That's
you.
the
Sorry,
question,
I
yeah,
wasn't
okay.
tracking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's the question we have, is the fact that, who does the appointing authority fall to? And for the permanent appointment, it clearly falls to the board with an interim appointment. I believe it falls to the board on a permanent appointment, too, if there's a vacancy in the finance director's role.
and just if I might add, the importance of this particular role, treasurer-collector, right now, appointing an interim, this is the person who is the sole authorized person right now to make any of the town's debt payments, to collect and deposit any monies, taxes, anything like that. It's the person that, the stamp is on the back of the check with their signature and also on paychecks. And so this person it's important to have somebody in that role. And then we'll need to probably put a backup person.
So if I could, so the resumes that was submitted for Paula Maloney has under education, certified Massachusetts treasurer and collector, certified Department of State passport acceptance agent, and an associate's. This resume is this a personal resume, or is this something the town put together?
That's hers.
Hers. So are those, are you saying those certifications necessary for the job?
There's something that's desired of the position. It's not required, but if you can get them, it's really a plus.
We usually give you 3 years to get it if we hire you.
Okay.
And we look for
So-
candidates to have it if they,
It's way,
it's
you know, it's a
very
cost
limited.
savings to have
Okay, no,
someone already
it's
have it.
definitely a positive.
Yeah.
So, and not to go backwards, but if you look at the resume of the one we just spoke of, there's no certifications at all listed. Is that incomplete, or does
Yeah.
she not have certifications?
She's done all the accounting classes, just needs to take the exam. So
Yeah.
she's doing the certified municipal accounting
Right.
courses.
She's in the
Can she
process.
hold that position without any certifications?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's
She
not
can
required.
sign off on things related to an $80 million budget with no certifications?
She has it, well, she clearly has the role and understands municipal finance. The issue is that there's no requirement for a municipal certification, because that's a relatively new thing that's come out only in the past few years.
If we were to hire for that position, we'd make it contingent on, you need to acquire this within a couple of years.
a few years. It's a
Whatever, I
relatively
think
new
it's a
thing.
2-year thing for town accountant
Right.
certification.
And are there certifications right now in the finance director, town accountant role today that the current person has?
She's actually in the process of trying
She's
to
a
get certified.
candidate for
She's a
it,
No,
but
but
she doesn't have it.
Going back to
just
the other
left.
one, sorry. So going back to the finance director, town accountant,
Yeah.
are there any certifications that are held today at that level? Just trying to understand how.
No, she doesn't, the interim person, the services person, contract person does.
He's a municipal certified.
He's a certified municipal
Right, so the
accountant.
role that we're filling, though, the person who's not here, does that person have certifications?
Wait, just
Did-
say job title.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes, so he's a certified government
Accountant.
accountant.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
The same.
it gets confusing with all these different positions.
Yeah,
So the person who's in on a consulting basis,
Also has it.
he has that same certified government accountant. as
All right,
well
any
as-
other discussion on this? I get a motion to appoint Paula Moon?
Move to appoint Paul Maloney as temporary treasurer collector
30 days.
to be reevaluated on January 22nd, 2019. Thank you, Doc.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. No opposed. Okay. 7:15, CBS Sporting Club request extension of closing hours for food service. This goes back to the last week's with the questions that we had. So,
And the information we got following up
We did, yeah, we did.
satisfied it. It
Yeah, we
was due to
sent it,
pay-per-view
yeah.
fights.
So I think you have all the information you
Yeah.
need now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that answered
Yeah.
at least my question.
Yeah, and that was just the reason that we kind of held it over. There was just some open-ended questions, so does anybody else have any further discussions on this? All right. You wanna-
No. Move to approve extension of closing hours for food service to 2 a.m. on December 29th, 2018, January 26th, 2019, February 9th, 2019, and March 2nd, 2019.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right, Selectmen's update. A couple of things. Looking at the January calendar, I think we want to add a Selectmen's meeting. And I want to kind of get the feeling of the board, and you don't need to give me an answer tonight, but you can get back to Amanda. I'm looking at possibly adding an additional one on the 15th of January, just to review the budget. So that would be ideal. I'd rather do it that night as opposed to the 29th, because that gives AdCom and everybody else time to adjust if we have questions. So if everybody can just kind of look, see if they're available. If not, maybe we can do it a different night of the week. One other thing, I reached out to one of the residents of the whole Fisher Street area to try to set up a meeting after the first of the year to kind of go over some of their concerns with the Hanover project and get a pulse for what the neighbors are kind of looking for. So more to follow on that.
Did you get the name
I did.
forwarded?
I did.
Okay.
So it's-
What's going on over there? Sorry if
I
I...
can't tell.
Yeah, at
So
the
let me
last,
just give you a
Oh,
summary.
okay.
Yeah, that was the Hanover project where it was part of the 40, it was a 40B. It was like one of the last big 40Bs that the town did. And part of it was that they, part of the approval process included two $150,000 allotments of funds that were set aside for, one was more of a community-wide improvement thing, but that we only used a portion of, that was identified for some software improvements in permitting. And the other one was for $150,000 for traffic improvements after the project was completed. And so at this point in time, we still have money left over in both accounts. We have the full $150,000 in one, and we have additional money left over. I think it's somewhere in the order of about, if I'm not mistaken, probably close to $90,000 in that account that's left. So we are prepared to utilize those funds. The board had indicated at a previous meeting, prior to your coming, that they wanted to try and use the most of that money towards mitigation for the neighborhood if possible. So we are now at a point where Roger Hill has indicated that he could utilize the funds to help pave the roads in the area, but he wants to make sure that the board is okay with that before he does that. But the board has expressed a desire to try and meet with some of the neighbors to get their reaction to that and to see if that is the most important change that needs to be done at this point. The company, the Hanover Companies, is actually going to do, is required to do a traffic study as part of that. So they're in the process of initiating that. And so we'll be waiting to see the results of that. So, and that will sort of give us an indication if there's any kind of traffic improvements that are longer-term traffic improvements that are needed at the intersection down near 140. So that information is still forthcoming, and once we have that, that will certainly be helpful to the discussion that we have held with the board and with the neighbors in the area. So it was a pretty active group. It wasn't a large group, but it was a pretty active group that was involved in that discussion during the time that the Hanover Companies was being evaluated. So we want to make sure that we reach out to some of those folks to see if we can get whatever folks are necessary, have interest in continuing to pursue that.
And then the only other thing I had too is at our next meeting on the agenda, I want a discussion on where we are as a town with National Grid, with tree maintenance, what's our emergency plans.
Okay, so I have a meeting tomorrow morning with our department heads, and I'm going to get some direction from them as to how we can do that, and also reach out to National Grid. The tree trimming portion usually occurs in the fall, so we would be typically done this time of year. So I'll get a report from Public Works as to how far we've gone with that. And they work directly with National Grid on that tree trimming portion. So I think we'll be in a better position to comment on at the next meeting for that.
You know, the other thing that we had talked about is doing what Mansfield does, you know, ground to sky clearing in the zone rather than, you know, creating alleys. I think, you know, obviously we had some high winds earlier this morning and knocked out some power from trees going down. So, you know, we might want to gauge the community's appetite to doing that. You know, just a discussion.
It's not a bad discussion point to have, because what's happened is that some communities, I think, particularly ones that have a lot of trees on their roads, have a lot of discussion about that particular point because they are anti-sky, ground-to-sky trimming. But typically, when we have major storms, they're the first ones to go out, and they go out for a long time. So there is an implication to that. There's a balance that you have to look at. And as we all know, storms are getting more and more intense. They're not getting less intense. They're getting more and more intense. So I think that is a time to start really visiting some of those longer-term implications.
Anybody else have anything? All right, town manager update.
So I just wanted to remind everyone, we're having our breakfast tomorrow morning. The town manager's breakfast is tomorrow morning, so if anybody can make it, I know it's typically hard to everybody to do because of everybody's work schedules, but if you can make it, you're certainly welcome. That's going to be at the Foxborough Country Club, so all staff have been invited, and we do it in shifts so everybody continues to work, but it's nice. It's a nice get-together every year, and we really appreciate everybody coming out.
I'm sorry, what are the times again?
It starts at 9. We actually have a staff meeting starting at 9, and we'll be done, I think, around 9:30. So probably about 9:30, Doc, if you're interested. And then and it goes to about 11. So it's like 9:30 to 11. So people rotate in and rotate out. And other than that, I just want to wish everybody a very healthy, happy holiday season, and I wish everybody a good New Year, because we won't be seeing each other till January 2nd, I believe, is your next meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Assistant Town Manager update?
Not much to report. The transition's going very well. I'm in my part-time schedule now, so I'm tapering off into the sunset. And we kicked off fire negotiations today. That's the last group we have remaining to settle, and we're trying really hard to get them all sewn up before I go. And we had a great meeting with a great group of firefighters today, and I feel optimistic that we'll have a pretty quick negotiating session. So that's all I have.
Can you remind us again what your last day is? I know you've told us 1,000 times.
January
I promise I'll ask you
22nd.
again. Okay.
22nd.
Which is
January
a
22nd,
big
okay.
day on today's
Calendar,
agenda.
so the day,
It's
the
also
last
my
day of the last day.
birthday. That's why it's my retirement day is my birthday. So, yeah, that's it.
Make sure that Doc bakes you a cake.
Please.
I'm on it.
That's the official vice chair.
Is that the vice chair?
Yeah,
That's the
that's
role.
actually written.
It's in your job description. Mike, do you have anything to add?
So that will be the last of the 4 remaining contracts to sew up before Maytown meeting. And then we have 3 recruitments that are going on. The animal control officer position has been opened. Sue is retiring in March,
I didn't know that.
just after her husband is retiring. And so we have 33 applicants already for that position. Very unique skill set, so I hope we get a lot of applicants, because the applicants can range the gamut. So I haven't had a chance to look at those yet, but treasurer collector is closed. We have 44 applicants, as we talked about. So we should be closed right after your 2 meetings from now. And the assistant assessor, we're getting close to the end of that. We had 131 applicants on that, and that's it for me.
Just, we should just tell the board, inform the board about the fact that we did the animal control position. We actually took another look at that position. So we, at one point, looked at it as a regionalization opportunity, but the ones that made sense to us were already involved in some regional activities. So we couldn't really pursue that. But so what we did was we looked internally to see how we could further explore opportunities to improve some of the services that we're doing. And so we reached out to the police department, particularly into some of our enforcement agencies, and we think that we can actually expand the responsibilities of that role, in which we have identified that in the new job description, to be more of an enforcement agent, not just limited to animal control. So they will be helping out with issuing tickets. They will happily issue notices from zoning violations. If they can't be delivered that day, they'll deliver them at different times when the agent can do that, and assist in some of the enforcement activities that throughout the town. So we're just looking at ways to expand that opportunity so we can get more out of that role. Sue had a very unique set of skills that I think we'll have a hard time duplicating. And has did a great job with the stuff that she did, but I think now is an opportunity for us to look at that in a little different way. And certainly, you still have to have a love for animals, too, to deal with the kind of things that she has dealt with. So just looking at that, again, consistent with the way we look at every job when they become vacant, how do we update it, how do we improve it, how do we possibly expand the role if we're not doing something that we can't do now. maybe we can pick up some of those duties, and that's what we're trying to do.
And that innovative look at that role, I think is going to be really, we agree, is going to be good for the town. What we heard loud and clear is that Foxborough, by and large, wants to keep its own animal control officer because, Sue and that role have provided a great service to the town during times of sheltering, during times when you've got an animal on the road or, whatever, rabid animal. But where she's already an enforcement officer carrying a badge, we're able to just expand that enforcement role without adding new duties. So it's something that the union was, happily agreed that they thought it was a great thing to keep that role in the town, not share. But we do have a collaborative effort with Mansfield and Foxborough using the animal shelter, and that's just been a great service.
Okay. Action items.
4 quick action items. First one, move to approve Pronti Inc. Common Vic license to expire 12/31/19.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve Foxborough Regional Charter School public event application for the 9th annual 5K/10K road race to be held on October 26, 2019 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation of $35 from Anonymous to the Council on Aging/Human Services for the Lockbox Safety Program.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation of $100 from Michael and Constance McLaughlin to Veteran Services for the Iraq and Afghanistan War Memorial.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.